our land. Glorious and free. I have 2 songs going on. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
These are patriotic Canadians.
Oh my God!
You're now attacking different older people.
You guys are disgusting!
Look at the fucking news right here. Look. Look. You coward! You sound like
We have nowhere else to go.
My phone dropped.
I hope it wasn't.
Anybody with us? I see you shaking your head back there. You should be watching this. Take a lesson in courage.
Man, they declared this called the Crusade.
Cowards!
Nazi supporters.
Generation theory. Every generation. Law enforcement professionals, huh?
Oh, you got blown up in Afghanistan, eh? And these guys are going to arrest you and push you back when you serve for your country?
Right. You guys keep those mentions. Resign everybody else to serve them. Go for it.
I don't smoke. I'm dying. Children. You don't know my life. You don't know my struggle. I fought for my shit. I survived the worst. This is nothing.
Tell your boss to stop it, huh?
I've been
Follow
blown
the
up.
law.
Peace and love. And if
No
you think
respect
he
for
does,
human dignity
you're wrong.
whatsoever. We're not livestock to make rich boomers. All serial killers are boomers. I don't said that.
We love you all.
All they want is to be heard.
Take a second.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I need a minute.
You are not a serf.
I did surfing once.
We want to
oh
do
man, I
the
hurt myself there
SURF
too.
thing. No. You don't want to go SERF. That's
Oh,
what
no,
these guys
I-
want you to do. They want you to go SERF.
Oh,
Nuremberg 2, boys. Can't wait to see you there.
I don't want to be here.
You guys' grandchildren are going to be born
I'd much
into
rather be
debt,
home with my wife and kids.
owing a piece of their lives to the state. That's a wounded veteran! Yes! That's a wounded veteran! Yes! That's a wounded warrior right there! They got a shield in his fucking head! Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up!
Hold on, stop pushing.
Back up! They kicked him in the leg.
Back up, back up. Hold on, stop pushing.
They kicked him in the leg. The RCR guy. They booted him. That was weird. There's the one. The one who booted him was this one. Couture Lazon. He kicked the vet that had the wounded right leg. He kicked him right in the leg.
Oh, he's a greasy one. This guy right here, F. Coucher Lazon. He kicked
Hey, what's up, guys? Saw you kicking that wounded veteran while he was down there earlier. You guys are a bunch of thugs, huh?
Didn't want freedom would stop everybody from having
No, not at all. You want to keep the rich guys in power right now, huh? Soaking up all the wealth, buying up all those residential properties, turning the millennials into a bunch of permanent renters, reaching into the pockets of the unborn, deciding all future children to be born into serfdom. That's you guys. Abusing your citizens, huh?
I am the media now.
Just following orders, just like those guards at the ovens of Auschwitz. That's you,
Those connections are getting up for all of our friends here.
right? You just do as you're told, right?
Moi, j'ai pas la même opinion. These guys are getting in.
Hey, what's up, troops? It's Jeff Avely, Ops Sgt-Maj for Veterans for Freedom, back with you now. I have a very special guest with me here today. I'm pretty excited to have this guy on. Actually, it's a very switched-on young man. He's only in grade 11. His name is Josh Alexander, and he's been at the forefront of some of the key issues in the movement right now in terms of pushing back against the cult of wokeism, under which we are currently being ruled. So it's good to see such bright young people kind of getting on board with this and waking up, and so many people finally starting to awaken to what's really going on in our society. But you know, I think I'll let him speak for himself and bring Josh in here now. Hey there, Josh. How you doing, brother?
How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Welcome aboard. It's really great to have you, man. And yeah, like I said in the intro, you've been really busy with a lot of stuff. Do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what you got on your plate right now, and just let us know a little bit about who you are and how you got involved to begin with?
Sure. So previously, I was known as the student walkout organizer during the Freedom Convoy, and I did it against the mask mandates and just in solidarity with the convoy in general. And that spread from the entire province of Nova Scotia and the entire province of Ontario. And a couple schools had to shut down because of crowd volume and all that. So that was kind of our first claim to fame. And after that, like, I got suspended maybe 3 times from my school, and I just decided to switch boards. So at the beginning of this year, I switched from the public board to the Catholic board. And while in the Catholic board, it came to my attention that there were male students who claimed to be female students and were now using the female washrooms. A few female students expressed concern to me, so I brought it up in a class discussion, and I was berated by both staff and students. And yeah, I was told that there's multiple genders. The conversation spiraled into a crazy leftist woke ideology class.
Yeah.
And we were like, it went as far as the teacher defending male breastfeeding, and like it just got crazy.
Yeah.
So I took it to the office, and I made the complaint, and I was told that they wouldn't pursue my personal crusade, and they said my concerns wouldn't be legitimized until a female student came forward with the same concern. And so I went around and I found a female student that was brave enough to speak out, and they also ignored her as well. So after that happened, I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I organized a student walkout. I put out a poster, and I was at home while I did this, and I had missed several days of school leading up to the protest. And 2 days before the actual date of the protest, I was suspended indefinitely with the possibility of expulsion. And that was for violating the safe schools policy. So they also said that they were obliged to contact the police for hate-based comments. And I'm not sure. Do you even have a copy of the poster? I should have probably brought that in here, but it was
Which
all
poster?
because
Sorry.
the poster for the walkout.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully I
No,
don't
I
have
didn't
it.
pull it up.
Yeah, there was there was a Bible verse on the poster, and it said, "God made them male and female," Mark 10:6. And so I guess that is kind of what sparked all the controversy in the pride groups. I don't see what else would have. But yeah, so three different pride groups showed up at my school and counter protest, and the school threatened any students with. They said they wouldn't have transportation home if they walked out, and they'd also it would ruin their local reputations. And there's apparently, I wasn't in the classes, but apparently there were quite a few threats thrown at the students. So what was looking to be quite a successful walkout turned into about 15 students walking out to the road.
Right.
And so yeah, that's kind of where when I had quite a few supporters come out from the community, but certainly not enough. We were outnumbered by the counter protesters, and the pride communities, local pride groups labeled me a terrorist organization, as well as Derek Sloan's Ontario Party and Jeremy O'Sullivan's Freedom Fighters Canada. They were all labeled anti-trans hate groups. So it was a very negative response from the media. But more recently, we've got some more positive feedback from LifeSite News. I've been on a couple different shows. I've got a lot on my schedule coming up. And there's actually a petition out you can go sign to have me reinstated in the school.
Yeah, I got that right here, actually. So I'll throw this up on the screen for everybody. But this is Stand with Josh Alexander against school that allows boys to use girls' bathrooms. So this is Life Petitions. It's at lifesitenews.com. So yeah, and it says Josh Alexander is facing expulsion for defying the LGBT agenda at St. Joseph's High School. Finish his brave mission now. St. Joseph's High School has suspended Josh Alexander and is now considering his expulsion for daring to challenge the LGBT transgender agenda. And, you know, I'm not the first to say this, but the T doesn't really belong in there. You know, there's an epistemological claim being made about the nature of reality with the T, whereas the others are just preferences. So it's a categorical error, really, right off the bat. It says Josh Alexander refused to sit idly while deluded young men gained access to the women's restroom, all by pretending to be women. Young women should not be manipulated in this way and deserve safe bathrooms without young men getting in them. Taking action into his own hands, Josh has led a school-wide walkout in open defiance of St. Joseph's transgender policy, demanding the students' high school stop this immorality. This is when the school took action against Josh Alexander and suspended him. There's, sign, blah, blah, blah. This attack on truth and blatant rejection of the Catholicism from Catholic school cannot be tolerated. People of faith, goodwill, and common sense must stand up and say enough. Do not remain silent. Your voice is powerful, so make your voice heard. Sign now, and signing and sharing and blah, blah, blah. Raise your voice in defense of Josh and demand that St. Joseph stop its transgender agenda. So well done, Josh. For such a young guy, like you seem to be quite a force to be reckoned with out there in the movement. So yeah, we really appreciate everything you're doing here, man. And I know what it's like. Like there must be a lot of heat coming right now, a lot of heat and a lot of hate. Because as far as I'm able to tell, like we have a new theocracy on our hands here, and by its common vernacular, it's wokeism, but the technical term is postmodernism, which is just American communism, really, when you boil it right down. It's a very polarizing and fracturing kind of dogma that they're inflicting on our society right now. Yeah, it has everything to do with just kind of atomizing us as a society and getting everybody into these smaller and smaller groups, put them all against each other. And I think the LGBT crew is even turning against the G's now because somehow they're less, I guess, less worthy of protection. I'm not sure what's going on there. They don't really think that they're, as oppressed as the rest of them. So. Anyway, yeah, I kind of see this as a new return to theocracy, and I see a lot of religious folks out there in the movement right now. I think that it's like Nietzsche said. He said that the more we secularized as a society, the more we would put the religious impulse into the state, and that's how we ended up with communism. Essentially, he predicted communism in the 20th century, and as you can see, we have to keep going back through these things. Our ancestors said we would have to rise up at some point. I never thought I would see it in my lifetime, that's for sure. But here we are, yeah, I think that a lot of the folks out there in the religious community have this kind of inoculation, psychologically, against a lot of the brainwashing that comes with this imposition of a new dogma on people, trying to indoctrinate them into this new faith. But a lot of people who already have faith seem like they're pretty well inoculated against this, where as a lot of the folks who are maybe a little bit more secular and not even philosophical, they seem to be kind of vulnerable to it, in my assessment anyway. So do you find, and I think I know the answer already, but do you find that your faith and the people around you, in the religious community, do you find that there tends to be a lot of motivation for the pushback against this coming from your the way the teachings of the Bible, or the community values sort of thing? Do you find that has a lot to do with the way these groups are forming right now, or what's been your experience in that regard?
Yeah, for sure. I think it plays quite a big role, just with the kind of, it's almost an evil push we're seeing. It is an evil push we're seeing from the leftists, and it's very contrary to anything you see in the Bible or in the Christian faith. And so I see a lot of Christians are standing up and saying, okay, this has gone too far. And there's a lot different, like, I'm seeing a different response from the Christian community over this topic versus the mask mandates and all that. There were fewer to get behind that, and I think it was just a lot less obvious how evil the push was there. But there's a lot more Christians getting behind me on this one.
Yeah, right on. And like I said, we see that all across the movement, I find. And here's something I want to throw to here, because it all kind of ties in nicely, I find, with your situation here. But this was on your page, and I think you said somebody else posted it, but I just found this to be such a good message for young folks out there, especially in the religious community. And I'll let you know, I'm not in that community myself. I'm a pretty loud and proud atheist, but it's like I said, I do recognize that it seems to be serving as a kind of inoculation against this brainwashing too. But I digress. I just wanted to show everybody there's a pretty positive message for the young people out there, I thought.
Mom always told me to be a good boy, but the world said I could be anything I wanted to be, which is great, because I want to be a problem. No, I won't dive into sex, drugs, or gender confusion. To the world, that would make me a good little boy. I will learn formal logic and adhere firmly to the concept of objective truth. I will commit myself absolutely to the authority of the Word of God and make friends with Augustine, Luther, Calvin, Chesterton, Lewis, and the U.S. Constitution. I hope to grow up and love only one woman, a woman at least as clear-thinking and rebellious in this world as I will be, who knows where true beauty lies and who will never let me stop striving to be the biggest problem I can be. I will give my life for hers and aim to have a family large enough to require specialty automobiles. We will worship in a church unashamed of the gospel and live in a community of families doing the same. I will work myself to the bone providing for my family, and I will make sure my kids all fall in love with Narnia and Middle-earth, that they will all know how to think, that evolution will make them giggle, and rainbows will make them think of Noah and his arky-arky. Like I said, I will be a problem, immune to all that is hip and trendy and now, singing songs that are centuries old, savoring good wine and great whiskey, dancing and laughing and feasting while the enemies of God scowl and glower in shelter in place. Hey, little boy, the world says, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a metastasizing cancer of conservative Christian culture, devouring Marx's impotent progressive dream and building a resurrected Western world. I want to be a stomper of stupid sandcastles, an exposer of poisonous lies. I want my life to be a monument to the triune creator God who made us all. The kind of monument you and yours will never be able to tear down. Oh, and a fireman. Thanks for asking. New St. Andrews College. Liberal arts for outlaws.
Not too shabby. Yeah, I really appreciate the message there, and I do think that I do kind of think that the Christianity had an awful lot to do with why the West became so peaceful and so great in the first place. I mean, and I'm saying this as an atheist. I just kind of look at all the different faiths, and I can kind of say, no, this one's better than that one, really, objectively speaking. And that I think is. I think a lot of the reason for that, I guess, is because of the example that Jesus said, where he was kind of like, no, it's not that important, to just simply obey the Sanhedrin in this case when it came to, stoning people to death and stuff like that. It's not the obedience is not the obedience to authority is not the path to the good life here. There are higher principles at stake, and it really is those kinds of higher principles that matter more. And also, I find that there's a little bit more kind of there's a lot more kind of dignity, I guess, human dignity to be found in Christianity itself. Not so much the Old Testament, but more in the coming from Jesus and his message of turning the other cheek and just accepting his fate. I find that it's actually very much in line with a lot of things that Socrates said about 350 BC in ancient Athens. But yeah, this message of you just kind of you stand up to it, you take a principled stand, and it's nonviolent. And if they're offering you violence, then I mean, his whole message was to say, no, don't defend me, just let them do it. Let them show you guys what they're really like. And I think we got that in Ottawa. That was Chris Deering's message as well. He said he went to Ottawa to be a punching bag when he got pulled down by the cops and kneed and kicked there. He basically just said, like, they're going to do that, so just let them do that and show everybody what they're really like. So it seems that it provides us with a bit of a roadmap when we're dealing with these new theocracies. I think that was kind of what Jesus was dealing with in his time. It was a Sanhedrin that had grown corrupt and brutal with its citizens and puritanical. And there were probably a lot of practices that were not common practice that all of a sudden got to be very common again, and as the Sanhedrin got to be more ruthless. But yeah, so I guess I just wanted to pick your brain on that one a little bit. In terms of the approach and the messaging, what are your thoughts there? Like coming from your Catholic background, in terms of, I guess what the tactic is here, how you want to stand up to authority, and what you do when they're really putting the pressure on.
So actually, I'm not a Catholic. I was going to a Catholic school. I'm a Christian, so a very similar belief system. But
yep.
I was going to a Catholic school, so I figured I'm going to involve my Christian faith in whatever I'm advertising. It's going to be incredibly hard for them to villainize that, and it's one of my main motivators. So I published that on almost everything, and apparently that wasn't okay in even a Catholic school. And when I even had those discussions in the office with the administrators, they refused to have any sort of religious debate with me because they told me one of their first statements, actually their very first statement, was when I addressed them, I said there are male students using the female washrooms, and they corrected me and said they're females, and I said no, they're males, and it kind of developed in that sense. And so they said from that office they're considered female students, and I said, okay, you're a Catholic school, give me your religious opinion on this. And they told me I'd have to talk to a priest or a chaplain. So
The priest or chaplain that told them that there were more than two genders?
No, so like they were telling me if they wanted me to find a priest or chaplain to have that debate because I'm saying there's two genders and you're born either a guy or a girl, period.
Yeah.
And they said that was an opinion, and I'd have to talk to a priest to get a religious viewpoint on it. And so they said they could set up that meeting. So I said, all right, let's do it tomorrow. And they said, no, we can't do it tomorrow. I said, how about the day after? And it kind of they refused to have the meeting. I'd asked over and over, and they didn't want to set that up. So it was a Catholic school, but now they're all publicly funded. So they've kind of thrown their morals out the window. And that it certainly shows.
Yeah, that's what happens when you put everything in the hands of the state like that. You got to understand the incentive structures that are set up. It's the same thing that happened with the media. I mean, they're on the take with the government now, so they're not going to step out of line because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. And it sounds like a lot of that is happening in the schools as well. And again, it's one of these epistemological questions, And the thing that I always want to ask them, because you're sitting there and you're saying things like, this person is male, or there are only two genders, and they're saying no. Did they happen to say how many genders there really are, or was this just?
The office wouldn't tell me that. My math teacher though, I said there's two genders, and he said no, there's not. He said there's as many genders as you want there to be. I said all right, so we've got male and female down. I said those are genders, correct? And he said yes. I said no, name me at least one other.
Right.
Able to.
I mean, even I can do that. I can say trans man and trans women because that's what they're looking for, I think. But yeah, these are effectively BS artists is what we're talking about here. And that is kind of the correct response I think you're given. It's to kind of come back at them with a question and start probing these claims that they're making. And that's something that is not well understood on the other side because it's a theocracy and everybody's just kind of going around parroting the dogma so they can, get a position in the hierarchy. Yeah, I just like to come back at them with like my favorite question. How do you know that? And watch them fall apart. And it is kind of the Socratic method. I'm using a lot of Socrates apparently on this podcast. But that is what he did. He went out into the marketplace and exposed all of the so-called experts for being charlatans to everybody they were taking advantage of by simply just probing questions, right? Well, how do you know this and how do you know that? Where are you getting this information? Where is it coming from? Is that a valid argument? Well, I mean, if we take all the same rationale and plug it into an analogy, then we see that it doesn't work. So it doesn't work here either. And that's kind of how philosophy started, I guess. And that is the question that it asks is how we know. So I found that to be an extremely useful tactic when I'm dealing with such people. And I love what you're doing there when you say how many genders are there, and just get them on the spot to see what they can answer. And like ask for some reference material or something like that too. And since we're kind of talking about the epistemology of it, I'll say, when it comes to the gender question, gender is a coupling relationship whereby one component is partially inserted into the other component to create the couple. Sex is the biological manifestation of gender, but gender exists everywhere. So if you're talking about electrical connectors or plumbing parts or anything like this, like you need to know male to male coupler or male to female coupler, and there's no, I don't know, trans male coupler out there anywhere or anything like that. These are just categories that are useful in describing the world around us. And there is a very common coupling relationship that is gendered. Like I said, sex is the biological manifestation of gender for the purpose of reproduction. Again, it only has a male and female. And I do remember kind of back in the 90s when more attention was starting to be paid to what we used to call hermaphrodites, which we now call transsexuals. but that's not another general. That's not another gender. That's actually like a birth defect, a deformity. It's malformation, and it's terrible what these people have to go through. My heart goes out to them, and a lot of things back in the day were done very improper to them when they were first born and things like that. But that still doesn't get us all the way to another gender in the human species, and we find that when we get into these categories, it's just kind of better to take them at a case by case basis, right? In terms of how we approach treatment options, and not create a new category, because it doesn't really provide us any additional information. It's not a functional category. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But I'll show another video that we have here on. This one's from your profile as well, but I like this.
So, contrary to what has been misrepresented on the media, this rally is not about hate. There's been a popular chant over there, Love Over Hate, and we agree with that. This rally is about keeping males out of female washrooms. That is a perverted idea, and it needs to end. Unfortunately, it's happening inside those doors right now. Female students have complained about this. The school refuses to take action. I have decided to take action. Thank you all for joining me. There is a over-sexualization of children in the education system. It's quite disgusting, actually. The focus on gender dysphoria and the focus on anything related... Sorry. There's a focus on gender dysphoria, which should not be allowed in our school system. These kids do not have fully developed brains, and it should not be pushed on them. This is something that a child should grow and develop and learn about as they're older, and they have the right to do so. It is not the job of educators to push it on the teens. Their job is to educate and educate alone. We'll stand against this and always will. Do not mess with the kids, now or ever. Thank you for coming today. God bless you.
So that was on the day that you had the rally, and as I understand, you said earlier that more of the counter demonstrators actually showed up than demonstrators. So what was that like?
Well, it was interesting. Whenever you could kind of hear it on that video. Whenever one of us would get up to the mic, they'd be blowing horns and playing music and screaming and stuff, so we couldn't hear each other. But yeah, other than that, it was fairly peaceful. I mean, there was some yelling back and forth, unfortunately, but they kind of we had liaison there, and they kind of just communicated that there's to be no interactions between either group. Mm-hmm. And so other than that, it all went fairly smooth. It was interesting, though. I mentioned in that short little speech about their chant, Love Over Hate. And they would chant that whenever one of us would get up to speak. And that video cut just before it. But I actually got up. They started chanting it, and I chanted it on the mic with them. And then my crowd joined them. And they didn't know what to do. They stopped chanting Love Over Hate because we were chanting it. And then it just turned into a bunch of ruffled feathers over there.
Yeah, that's a really good little tactic I like to call lean into it. When they're saying that about you, they're saying this and they're saying that, you just got to say, yeah, that's me. You just kind of accept it. And and double down, go right back at them. So I think that was a really good way to turn that around on them. It is at the point where you just got to start shocking people. You got to be candid. I call it radical candor. That's what I advocate for. And I just say the plain truth, in your face, as plainly as it can be stated, as harshly as it can be stated. And it's jarring. People will kind of sit up and take notice, because it is the case that we have a lot of demagogues at the top right now that are just kind of deranging people and getting them all whipped up into this euphoria. And once they end up in that emotional state, you can't reason with them. They're all kind of deranged in this emotional state, and there's no reasoning with them. And you got to kind of hit them in the feels, hit them back in the emotions like that, and make them feel a little shamed for what they're doing. And that's really the only time they're going to start listening. I always say, once they get up on their high horse there, they can't hear you. You got to knock them down first. You got to bring them back down to our level where we all belong. If you got to get a little bit in their face, then that's fine, because there's no shortage of that on their side. And counter demonstrating never really used to be a thing. But it seems like you can't even get out there and do one of these demonstrations to push back on the woke dogma. And it's like you said, you got like triple the number of people out there at a counter demonstration. However, and that's not a sign that that's not a sign of actual support within the population, because like you said, you guys are being intimidated by staff at school to not participate on your side. But I bet you there's none of that going on the other side. They have all the support of the institutions and the society. Go ahead.
And to add on to that, I just thought I should mention the counter protesters had a union in Ottawa busing counter protesters up to my location. And I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard there was also people from as far as Toronto and Montreal there. So
professional protesters, is that what you're dealing with?
It was all fun.
Yeah. And that's been going on for a while. This is something that Andrew Breitbart started really exposing kind of in the early 2010s, around 2012, I think. He's not with us anymore, but he was one of those guys. It was one of the really early progenitors of the pushback for what he saw coming at the time. A lot of this foolish nonsense. It's communism is what it is. A lot of it is funded. It's authoritarianism. These are the kinds of things that they do elsewhere with the color revolutions in other countries, like in Ukraine, back in the 90s and stuff like that. People need symbols. People rally around symbols, and a lot of the authoritarian-minded folks that we're having to deal with right now in terms of foreign influence and influence within as well. These are the kinds of tactics that they engage in. It's called astroturfing, right? Anyway, that's interesting that you're having to come up against that. And I just, what Andrew used to do is he would walk around with his camera or his phone or whatever, and he would just go up to them and say, "Hey, did you make this sign?" Because I'm looking at this picture and there's a lot of professional signs there. He would just say, "Did you make this sign? Who made this sign? And hey, this sign says such and such. Can you explain to me what your messaging is," and stuff like that. And as it turns out, none of them know what the hell they're doing there. They're just there for a paycheck. So that's the world that we're living in right now. And here is how they covered you on CTV. We'll take a look at this.
Well, there was a protest outside of Renfrew High School today over the use of a gendered bathroom.
The demonstration was met with a counter-protest by pride groups from across the Ottawa Valley. Here's CTV's Dylan Dyson.
A protest took place near St. Joseph's Catholic High School in Renfrew over concerns of the use of gendered bathrooms. Grade 11 student Josh Alexander says he organized the protest.
As a young man, I feel an obligation to take action against something like that. I know there's a lot of misinformation posted online that this was the anti-trans rally. That's not the case. We just simply want male students removed from female washrooms.
Transgender grade 11 student Emma Smith was biologically born a male and says she has faced backlash over her bathroom usage and feels unsafe at St. Joseph's.
There are gender-neutral washrooms, which I have to use, but when they're in use, I just have to wait, which sucks. People should be able to use what washroom they want to use without fear of being hurt.
In a statement, the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board said, "It is important to note that St. Joseph's High School has had no part in the planning of this demonstration. We want to make it clear that the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board strongly condemns transphobia and all forms of hate."
Makes me feel angry, makes me feel protective, makes me want to go to class with my kid, but I can't, and this is the best that I can do to show my support.
The protest was met with counter-protests from pride groups throughout the Ottawa Valley.
We're creating a wall of positivity and love to protect any transgender youth and queer youth that attend St. Joseph's High School from a group that seems to be targeting them.
Protesters were joined by anti-vaccine mandate protesters, with the OPP also in attendance.
We didn't know what to expect today, to be honest with you. We knew that we were going to have two groups here for their own representation reasons, but we just come just to ensure that everybody is safe.
Dylan Dyson, CTV News, Renfrew.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same stuff that we're used to seeing all the time with these CTV folks. CTV Ottawa here. I don't know what that anchor man's name is, but he's got the most punchable face, I think, on TV. The coverage is what I always find to be so hilarious, because it says protest over gendered washroom use at Renfrew High School. So you're out there protesting the gendered washroom use at Renfrew High School, and the whole damn video is just shots of the counter protest and interviewing the counter protesters. And I don't think I saw an interview there anywhere with you or somebody from your side. So what's up with that?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of coverage. He gave me about, I think I got one line in there, and
yeah, was that even a question to you though, or was it just a shot of something you were saying?
No, he did pull me aside and interview me, which I was impressed by, but not much of it got aired.
No, it doesn't get aired, right? Yeah, they show the one side, the side that they want you to see. You know what? I throw this in all the time. This is kind of my shtick when I'm doing my show, that I give a little bit of take on why this is happening now. And I'm one of these. I'm a fourth turning guy. I don't know if you ever heard of the fourth turning, but essentially it says that we keep going into these civilizational crises every 4 generations, because there's only 4 generational archetypes. And when the prophet generational archetype reaches peak institutional power, that's when we end up with new theocracy every time. And it's basically what happens is the generation that surmounts the previous great crisis, this case being the Second World War, the GI generation, they came back from the Second World War and poured more steel and concrete than any other generation in history, and gave us the modern era with all the technology that we have, like, vaccines, radio telephony, SATCOM, GPS, space travel, you name it. So everything that we enjoy right now in the modern era is their technology, and everything that's happened since then is essentially just a refinement of the production process. The components got smaller and the networks got bigger, but that's about it. There's been no new innovations until mRNA. So what happens is they come back from the war and they end up indulging their kids. So this case would have been the permissive parenting style of that commie bastard, Dr. Spock. What ends up happening is they all grow up to be sociopaths and turn out narcissistic in their early lives and grow megalomaniacal with age. As they accrue power, they basically can't be trusted with power over their people. And that generation is the boomer generation that was born in the wake of the previous crisis. And if you just take a look around, I mean, that's who's running our institutions right now. It's, from the military to the RCMP, the editorial boards of the CBC, the deans, the tenured professors, the school boards, on and on and on. Everybody that's running our institutions right now, as a consequence of natural attrition, is from the boomer generation. They don't know what they're doing and don't really care about other people. I kind of throw that to your way, because it's interesting to me to see, like, the young people getting involved now, and you're Gen Z. So that's the artist archetype. They're the ones that are born during the crisis, or their children during the crisis. They have to the last time around, they had to hide under their desks, like that was going to protect them for something. And, overseas, they were making them melt down all kinds of cookware for ammunition that never got used. It was a bunch of pointless stuff. So it tends to have a lasting impression on them, that's for sure. And that carries forth into adulthood. Anyway, the way through this thing, as I've been saying, is hashtag the boomers must be stopped. They're not suited for peak institutional power, and they kind of need to step aside and let a competent, ethical generation like Gen X take it from here. And that is what I saw all throughout my military career. It's all those guys. You want to know why Canada's military is so scandalized all the time? Well, it's them. But I don't know if you're familiar with this or even how old your parents are. If they'd be boomers, I think they would be Gen X, actually, given your age. But there's a kind of it's the generational constellation in play right now that's always the problem. The crisis era lasts for about 22 years. This one started in 2008 with the global financial collapse, and the previous one started with the 29 stock collapse that led to the Great Depression. Last one, of course, culminated with World War II, and this one is culminating in the global pandemic. Whether or not we're going to end up going to World War III really remains to be seen. I don't think it's going to go kinetic. I think it's going to be all cyber, financial, and cultural. But that's enough for them to subvert us and end up owning us in the end. But that's a big mouthful, and I do that kind of thing. But anyway, I wonder now. Let me see what we got on that next agenda here. So here's the other side of it. It's good to see Gen Z standing up. I'll say that. We're trying to get the millennials on our side over here. Gen X has got to get the millennials behind us and take down this boomer theocracy once and for all. Just gut that state, fire them all like they did us. That's what I say. So here's something from LifeSite, and this is kind of a little bit more favorable coverage. It says Ontario Catholic School suspends student for protest against gender confused boys in female bathrooms. Now, see, I like that. I like this gender confused boys things, because that is what's really happening. Is we have these boomer school boards that are pushing the woke dogma onto vulnerable children, like Josh pointed out, that their brains aren't finished developing yet, and they and so they're very impressionable, right? And I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, but that's just how it is for all of us, when we're coming up. And the thing is that they're exploiting these kids. You see, they're deranging them. They're indoctrinating them. It's brainwashing. It's psychological abuse. It's emotional abuse. And you add to that all this anti-Western stuff that goes along with the woke dogma about how we're evil and racist and an evil society, and they should reject the society that they were born into and kind of cast all that off, give themselves over to the one true faith of wokeism. And a good way to get that diversity card that you need to get into the club is to undergo a biomedical transition and take all those puberty blockers, become a permanent medical patient to get those stocks going up and up and up for Lupron and other puberty blockers, and that'll fatten up those boomer pensions, which is kind of what it's really all about. It's a very serious exploitation. It's pretty egregious in my mind. Yeah, I think that there's a kind of fascism that's occurred organically, where we have this collaboration at the highest levels, and everybody has a conflict of interest because of their stock options, essentially, and the fact that the CPP is in this business now of taking profits from this kind of thing. So it's all pretty sick, but. Anyway, I don't know if you've ever really explored that angle at all. You have any thoughts on big pharma's hand in this, or conflicts of interest with, like, what is the reason they're really pushing all this stuff? And what is it? Cui bono. That's the question I'm always asking, right? Who benefits? Cui bono. And as far as I can see, it's big pharma and it's those pensions. But I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that, Josh. Open question. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I mean, I've explored quite a few different options. I can't say I have a solid theory. I obviously believe there's a lot of corruption going on in a kind of globalist manner, and I don't know if it's the mainstream theory of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, or if it's big pharma. I couldn't tell you, but I know it's very obvious there's an attack on anything normal or natural, and yeah, it's something we got to resist, no matter who the enemy is. Right now, we're kind of discovering the battlefield and seeing we don't even know who our enemy is yet.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I'm always kind of putting my finger on this. I'm just like, look around, guys. It's the boomers. And with the WEF, that's very clearly a factor, a strong factor, especially with Schwab buying off all the politicians. But I personally, I figure it's probably just another proxy for China. You know, like China was using the WHO during the pandemic, and it's pretty clear that they had all their scientists on board, and it's pretty clear that they had all the NBA basketball players on board. You know, they won't. You got guys like pro wrestlers out there. What was that guy's name? I don't know. I don't watch pro wrestling, but he did a whole long video apology to the people of China in Mandarin for insulting them. So if they care so much about public opinion and so much about controlling us and influencing us, that they got the wrestlers and the NBA stars in their pockets. And we know the WHO is in their pockets. And we know that Xi Jinping is the keynote speaker at the WEF. So it's not like he doesn't have influence there. I kind of see all roads leading back to China in that regard. And that road leads back to the boomers, because they were the ones who got in bed with China after the war, after the Vietnam War, and sent all our manufacturing off there so they could get rich. And they're still in bed with them now. So they're still getting rich off of China. And you see the BlackRock CEO, Boomer, he's out there talking about how much better for business, authoritarianism and stuff like that. And that's what it is. They're just megalomaniacs. They can't be trusted with it. They didn't even work in high school. I don't think people realize that. They just laid on the couch the whole time, and they got to like focus on their studies, or you know, whatever. They got a chance to be kids, and then they didn't get off the couch until after high school, and never really had to work more than part-time to pay all of their student debt by the time they finished university, or maybe a summer job, you know, planting trees or something like that. So it's like they say, right? Good times make weak men, right? So the strong men who create good times are the GIs after World War II, building the institutions to new heights and giving us all the new technology. So strong men bring good times, and then good times create weak men. That's the boomers. They come up in the period after the war known as the social high, when, you know, it's an incredible amount of economic growth, and they just kind of ride that wave all the way to peak institutional power without even really having to put in a whole lot of effort, and kind of being left with this impression that things just happen. And when they get to the top and there's nobody working above them, everything just kind of falls apart because they don't know what they're doing. That's what I saw in the military anyway. The strong men that create good times are the GIs. The good times that create weak men, that's the boomers. And then the boomers are the weak men who create hard times. And then strong men create good times again. But it's Gen X that comes up behind the boomers the whole way, kind of making their saves and cleaning up their messes. That are the strong men who know hard times, because that's what it was like for us back in the 80s. You know, time to grow up, little Gen Xer. I know you're only 6, but you got to be the man of the house now and take care of your mother, that kind of stuff. So we've been figuring it out since we were 6, and we know how to get stuff done and make things happen. So that's I'm trying to rally the younger generations here to this cause. So, but anyway, I'll get to the story here. What do you? Sorry, Josh, you want to say something there, buddy?
Well, that saying is probably one of the truest quotes I've ever heard. It's very evident, and it shows throughout all of history, and it's showing right now.
Well, and I do want to point out, and that's kind of that's why I want to bring some of the young guys on here a little bit more often too, because it seems like everybody's always bagging on you guys. And you know what? It's the boomer generation. Like, they bagged on us, and they still say that we're losers, and then you guys are stuck on your phones and this and that, and you know, what's wrong with this generation? What's wrong with that generation? It's like, well, you're soaking up all the wealth, guys. Like, you know, there's no opportunity left here. Like, other generations paid it forward for them and gave them an affordable middle class to move into, but it was their turn to pay it forward. They built like these what do you call them, gated communities for themselves, and then sold Gen X their 30-year-old fixer-uppers. So you know, and they're still the same people. They're just kind of, you know, all about themselves. And there was a bunch of articles back in the 80s to that effect too, because they started out as the hippies, and not wanting to work for the man. And then all through the 80s, there were the yuppies, and they're absolutely cutthroat, sending their corporations over to China and whatnot. But the thing is, yeah. So, but the thing is, the thing that I find people get wrong when we start talking about strong men bringing good times and weak men bringing hard times, because I hear guys like Tim Pool talk about it on his podcast, and maybe Jack Posobiec's been throwing it out there, and they'll say, you know, we're in a fourth turning. They never really explain what that is. And they use that analogy of strong men create good times create weak men bring hard times create strong men bring good times. So, and then as soon as they talk about that, they start going right to the millennials and Gen Z, and they're talking about how weak they are and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, guys, that's not what it is. The weak man in Strauss-Howe generational theory is the boomer, first of all. And the thing is that the millennials and Gen Z, they don't have any power or influence in our society because they just haven't had that much time to accrue it yet. So they're not the ones doing this right now. They're not the reason that this is happening. The reason this is happening is it's coming from the top. So it's the weak man who gets to peak institutional power. It's the guy who can't be trusted with power because he's low character. He's weak-minded, right? But yeah, so I'm always kind of sticking up for Gen Z and the millennials, and I'm saying, no, it's not them that's weak, okay? Like, I was in Afghanistan with the millennials. The weak man is the one that doesn't go to war when he's coming of age, and that's the only generation that didn't do that is the boomers. I mean, the silent generation went to Korea. Obviously, the GI generation went to Europe, and when it was their turn to go to Vietnam, they chickened out, and they've been scapegoating the West ever since, and saying that you know, military service is all about going all over the world killing brown people and stuff like that, so they could chicken out of Vietnam. So that's kind of what it all goes back to, is the West must fall for expecting the boomers to take up the same responsibility and undergo the same process of character development that every other generation in the history of Canada basically saw as a rite of passage into manhood. So anyway, I just want to arm you guys with information. You know, I don't want to see you taking any shit off of those greasy boomers and saying you're weak, because you know, the millennials have a campaign star for Afghanistan, and I saw them again in Iraq when I went back in 2019, and the boomers didn't do that when they were coming of age. So you know, it's a matter of character and character development, and those smelly hippies have none. So I like the young guys coming up these days. You're way cooler than those guys. So let me see. I'm just going to give a quick read of this because I talk too much. Renfrew, Ontario, LifeSite News. Josh Alexander is a Canadian high school student facing expulsion from his Catholic school because he took a stand against biological males using the girls' bathroom at his school. Alexander, who has been suspended, spoke to LifeSite News and told his story. A Christian, a teenager, the teenager believes that there are only two genders or sexes, which is taught in the Bible. Alexander told LifeSite that this issue had come up at school in his law class and math class, where he debated his classmates on the issue. Some of the girls at school confided in Alexander that they were made nervous by males using the girls' washroom. There is no reason a biological male, even one who identifies as the opposite sex, should have to use the girls' facilities, as there are multiple gender-neutral bathrooms at school. Alexander went to his school administration on behalf of the girls who approached him with their safety and privacy concerns, only to be told that, quote, they wouldn't take his concern seriously unless a girl said it, close quote. He returned with one of the female friends who had confided in him, but the school administration refused to take steps to ensure the girls' comfort and privacy. To take action against the ineffectiveness of authorities, Alexander decided to organize a walkout in support of the right of girls to access their facilities without the intrusion of biological males. Alexander posted video to social media which were shared by the organization Save Canada, to which Alexander belongs. His demonstration was also supported by the Ontario Party, which is led by Christian pro-life leader Derek Sloan. For his efforts, the school administration suspended him indefinitely and sent an email stating that any student who participated in the demonstration would be banned from accessing school transportation. This was especially difficult for students, as many students travel long distances to attend St. Joseph's in Renfrew. Still, a dedicated group of people showed up from the community to express their solidarity with the female students who felt unsafe at school. A local group that advocates for the presence of biological males in washrooms reserved for girls wrote on social media about Alexander and Save Canada, calling the patriotic group, quote, a terror organization. What was the terrorism you guys committed?
I don't remember.
I don't think the people know what terrorism is anymore. It is an act of violence. Like,
Yeah.
what
And
was the
actually, on one of their social media posts, they implied that we had plans to be violent, and I, of course, refuted this on their page, and I was deleted and banned. So
unreal.
I got that.
You can get deleted and banned over a lot of stuff. I get pulled into some of these groups, and if I don't support Pierre Poilievre, then they'll ban me. Just like, God, this is not how. Not how we build a functional society, guys. Like, everybody is just kind of writing everybody off all the time. And that's just not how it is. Like, we're all different, and the game is to kind of find the areas on which we can collaborate, and kind of stay away from the rest while we're working on more important things, you got to be able to work with all people, right? And what did I want to say about this? But the terror organization. Okay. But I got to put this back up. Sorry, 1 second. The person who posted indicated that he or she decided to pull his or her child from school because he or she believed Alexander's instance that the female-only spaces should be reserved for females made the school environment unsafe. Okay, so that is kind of the central issue that nobody wants to talk about. It's a safety issue. The whole reason that we have girls' bathrooms, boys and girls' bathrooms, I think it's more for the girls, is to protect them from predatory behavior, right? And young men, let's face it, we're all still kind of, learning to control that stuff. There's a lot of aggression that young men have to deal with as they're going through puberty. It's a hellish nightmare to have to go through, but we don't even send young people to jail because they're still so aggressive and still kind of figuring these things out. And so to remove a barrier like that that's put in there for safety really is kind of putting these girls at risk. And of course, the big problem has always been that predators are going to exploit these kinds of programs and policies in order to get access to vulnerable females in this case. And we saw that in Loudoun County, I believe it was, in the US. There was and you mentioned this is another element to it too, but you mentioned how there's this kind of thuggery coming from the administration where it's like, okay, we'll just abuse this other process, and you're not going to be allowed on the bus if you go to this protest. You're not allowed to use our bus service anymore. So they're abusing these other programs, denying you guys access to resources that are taxpayer funded, as if they own them and they can use them to blackmail people for political purposes. So it's all just a very gross abuse of process. We see that across the board. But there's no answer really for the safety issue, because we had that one. There was a father who got up at a meeting because somebody had asked whether this was a problem. People were concerned about the bathroom policy, and they were saying, "Oh no, absolutely, we can say unequivocally that no sexual assaults have happened in our bathrooms." And the father of one girl who had been victimized stood up and started screaming at them and said, "You're lying, you're lying, you're lying." And I know you're lying, and I've told you guys this. And you know what they did? The military started watching this guy. I think there was some kind of security apparatus, folks. It's insane. They're abusing every process and power at their fingertips to intimidate and coerce people to go along with their wrongdoing. So, well, it's like you said, there's a lot of evil in the world today, I think. So, and there's a balancing of harms. Like if if we're doing something ethically, right, like the real world is such that it is often the case that no matter what, some harm is going to result no matter what. So your task here as a leader is to choose the least harmful option. And on one side, we have the hurt feelings of somebody who has to wait to get into the gender neutral bathroom if somebody else happens to be in there. And on the other hand, we have the risk of an actual rape that's, most traumatizing when females are young, and probably going to be most likely to ruin somebody's life. So we have they're prioritizing the hurt feelings over the serious sexual trauma that comes with sexual victimization, and they're saying, no, the girls are just going to have to live with that. We're going to have to live with more girls getting raped in order to spare these other people the hardship of waiting to use the gender neutral bathroom. So that's about the size of it right there. They're choosing a more harmful option and imposing this kind of risk and abuse on girls in order to favor their political ideology. Well, their ideology is what it really comes down to. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. You were mentioning the kind of the whole hormone issue with young men, and in that law class where the discussion first began, when I brought that up and I said, I wouldn't trust, as a young guy, I would know the guys around me, I wouldn't trust them with a female in a vulnerable situation.
Yep.
Like that's ridiculous. And I said, I don't think females should be in male washrooms or males should be in female washrooms. Either way, it's wrong. And the law teacher in front of the entire class told me the only reason I had held those beliefs is because I personally cannot control my own hormones. So
no, that's what they do. They're the ones who project. And since you mentioned good and evil, I'll say that my understanding of evil at this point is that it does project. That is the nature of evil. It's one of evil's constituents, but the evil one always projects their evil onto you. Yeah, and so that's what's got me very worried right now when it comes to this confiscation of firearms stuff. Because if they're saying you can't be trusted with firearms, guess what? They're the ones. Yeah, it's them. They're the ones who can't be trusted with a consolidation of all the firepower in Canada within the single body of the state. That's a bad idea, guys. Humans can't handle power.
Government tells you don't need a firearm, that's when you need it the most.
Yeah, no kidding. And I've been saying, like, when they're talking about military style assault weapons, that's not a real thing. An assault rifle is a real thing. That means something, but military style assault weapon, that just means your gun.
Yeah. It's such a generalized description. Like,
yeah, it's just made up category, and that's what we're dealing with right here is a dogma. There's a lot of made up categories. And if you practice and get good with your Socratic method, logical fallacies and stuff like that, radical candor, unstoppable. Just watch them squirm. They don't have answers for anything. Josh sent this to me as well. I wanted to show this. So this is the Topinator. Everybody from this show should be familiar with this guy. Obviously James Top, he's the first guy in history to actually march across the whole country of Canada. Not that anybody outside of the freedom movement would be aware, because the mainstream media didn't give him the time of day, of course. And if anything, tried to smear him. Rachel Gilmore tried to get him killed by calling him a white supremacist when he was walking along the side of the Trans-Canada Highway, and knowing that the last time she called somebody white supremacist at a freedom rally in Winnipeg, there was a vehicle attack that killed 1 and injured 3, I think. So yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you stand up to the regime in this country these days. You serve your country for, I think it was 28 years it's 26 or 28. And he's got 4 deployments to conflict zones, including 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. So all that for your country, most upstanding guy you could ever be. And if you just say there's something wrong now, there's something going on with Canada, then you'll have Rachel Gilmore trying to get you killed. But this is Josh here on the left side of my screen, and this here is me We marched together with James for how long was it, Josh? Was that the day we did 4?
It was just over 40K, I think.
Yeah, okay.
40.6 something that day.
Yeah, I had a good sweat on by the time we finished that, man. All the way. That was a hot one too. It was like 35 because it's Ottawa. I did the Nijmegen training in Ottawa 3 different years. I trained with them, and I deployed 1 year. But man, oh man, it's like you're starting out in March and you got like Ottawa is extreme. It goes all the way down to minus 40 in the winter, and then you get plus 40 in the summer. It's like an 80-degree temperature difference. So I was feeling it that day. I was really feeling the sun. I got a little bit of sunstroke. About you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, and did you get to march with him much after that, or was it just kind of the one day?
Yeah, I did 4 days with him, I believe.
Oh, awesome. So do you know what was your total altogether?
I had it calculated a while back. It was over 100, but
nice.
Yeah, I think I only did 2 full days with him.
Oh, okay, right on. And did you get a chance to go down to the War Monument by any chance when he was doing the arrival there? Yeah, I couldn't go, man.
Yeah, I know you had to turn around at Arm Prior, right?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you were probably still marching with me then, eh? Were you still with the group at that point?
I'm trying to remember. I remember watching the video of you having turned around, but I don't know if I was there that day.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the point, right? It was what happened there was I was at the trucker convoy. I got arrested. I got the red zone ban, and then they were doing Rolling Thunder. So, and that was all about the wreath laying ceremony to give dignity back to the monument and the veterans who were arrested. So I was like, I'll be damned if I'm not going to be there for that. And even though they said, don't come back, I was the sergeant major on parade, and I gave a speech. So they saw me on the drone, and they came out and got me for breaching the conditions that they gave me. And now I'm not allowed back to the greater Ottawa area, which actually goes all the way out to Arm Prior on one side, and I think the Rocklands in the east direction. So that's what I did. Is I marched as far as I could go, and as soon as we got to the sign for Arm Prior, I did a video. Said, check this out. I'm a veteran of 2 wars, 20 years of service, and I'm not allowed to go to the War Monument for this historic event. And you know what? It's just, somebody said it in here. It's all about showing how much control they have over us. That is what it is right there. It's about demoralizing us, pushing us around. And the demoralization is key, you guys. So you got to keep that in mind. If you let it bother you, then we're probably already losing this battle. Yeah. All right, buddy. So this is, it was really great having you on here. I appreciate you taking the time to come in and talk to us. And spectacular job, man. Please keep it up. It gives me so much hope to see a lot of the young people really starting to awaken to the kind of evil that's going on in our society right now. And it's got to be hard to resist from that kind of position. So, like, way to man up, Josh. It's really great to see. So we really appreciate you, brother. And I'll hand it over to you for just kind of final thoughts here before we sign off. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for your service. It took men like you, and like you were just talking about James Top, and in the previous generations, it took strong men to stand up and hold the torch. So thank you for your service.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it's everybody's torch too. And that's the line from Flanders Fields, right? The last stanza of it is the torch be yours, so hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not rest, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. And to me, that's a kind of call to vigilance or even action if need be, because it is their legacy. Okay, it's we stand on guard for thee. That means we're not going to let these guys' deaths be in vain, right? They gave their lives for these freedoms, and it's just a gross indignity to humanity, I think, to see people just so cavalierly, walk all over these rights and these freedoms. Like you might as well be walking over my grave. That's how I feel about it. And I'm pretty sure that all those boys are rolling in their graves over in Europe right now with all this going on. So, Josh, thanks, brother, for for taking up that torch. And you know, I think you're well on your way, man, to being a great man. So keep up the great work. Huh?
Thank you.
All right. And to everybody who's watching us out there, thanks for staying with us for this one, and stay frosty and stay safe.